Let's look at some of these statistics. At this point in the latest World Alzheimer's Report, over 78% of people around the world are concerned about getting dementia sometime in their life. And I think that number might even be low at 78%. I think everybody probably at one time or another has that concern of could it happen to me? Because especially now when we realize everybody, I don't talk to anybody anywhere that doesn't have somebody in their family, somebody in their church, a neighbor, someone that they know that has dementia. 2 out of 3 people, though, believe that dementia is a normal part of aging. And listen to this, 62% of healthcare workers believe that dementia is a normal part of aging. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. Memory loss is not a normal part of aging, as we're going to learn today. Slowing down is a normal part of aging. I've pulled up the wrong PowerPoint is a normal part of aging. Why did I walk in this room? Where are my glasses that are on my head? I can't find my keys. Did I take my medicine this morning? Normal parts of aging. Some of those are stress related, some of those are aging related, but actual forgetting, memory loss, that is not a normal part of aging. And dementia is not a normal part of aging. And people who don't work specifically in the field of memory care, even if they're in healthcare, look at that number, 62% of healthcare workers believe that it's part of aging, and it's not. And this is from the Alzheimer's Association 2024 facts and figures. There's over 6.9 million Americans right now that have Alzheimer's disease. That's not counting the other dementias. That's Alzheimer's disease. So let's look at what happens with that older, healthier brain. Yes, the communication between the neurons is slower. The blood flow to the brain can be reduced. There can even be some shrinkage. We can see inflammation increase. Now, I want you to, some of these are very specific. As we age, we tend to hold less items in our working memory, and our recall might be a little bit slower. So what does that look like? Multitasking. Think about when you were 20, 30 years old. You may have been paying attention to the TV, had a baby on your hip, you're cooking, you've got the phone up here, and you're doing we could multitask. We could do many, many things at one time. As we age, we might still multitask, but maybe we're not doing it very well. Or maybe we can only do a couple of things at a time. So our multitasking tends to kind of slow down. And then our recall slows down. I just met you yesterday, but what is your name? But I know that I met you yesterday. Where maybe when I was younger, I didn't have a problem with names. And now names are kind of my thing. But I know that I met you. You're not a complete stranger. So my recall might be a little slower. A slower response to sensory stimulation, because we know that maybe we aren't smelling things as well or tasting things the way we used to. Our vision changes, our hearing changes, even tactile, being able to touch things changes. That's all normal aging. But positive side, let's look at those good things about getting older. We're really resourceful. The older we get, the more resourceful we are because of how long we've lived and what we've experienced. Other things that are good things about aging, our comprehension and our general knowledge improves. You don't want to play a trivia game. As we age, we got more useless knowledge in the old noggin, is what I say. Look out if somebody wants to play trivia, because we are usually the go-tos for that. Again, because we've got all this knowledge. And again, sometimes it's useless knowledge, but it's there. The ability to perceive others' emotions and making better decisions improves. Think about that. As we get older, we learn how to read people. We learn how to read their face, their emotions, their body language. We actually get better with that as we get older. And making decisions, because we're pulling in all of this knowledge that we have. That term plastic brain, we're able to adapt to new challenges and tasks. Now, let me add here, we might not want to. I don't know about y'all, but my phone just did an update. Mad, mad, mad. My phone just did an update. It wiped out all of my passwords. But I can adapt to that. Plastic brain bends, adapts. Cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to work well even when some part of it is disrupted. So there are some really good things about aging. It is not all bad. So let's talk about dementia, because as dementia comes in, we tend to use the word dementia as a synonym for memory loss, and that is not the case. Here's what dementia is. Dementia is a group of symptoms affecting intellectual and social abilities severely enough to interfere with daily functioning. Do we usually see memory loss? Yes. Do we see issues with judgment? Yes. Do we start to see issues with language? Yes. To get a diagnosis of a specific type of dementia, there has to be something going on in two areas. So somebody comes in with just memory loss, that might not be dementia. That might be a thyroid disorder, a vitamin imbalance, malnutrition, severe depression. There are other things that cause just memory loss. But let's add to that, we're having issues with judgment, reasoning, being rational, communication, hygiene, all those other 35, 36 symptoms of dementia that we don't even know are symptoms of dementia until we get thrown into this. So two brain functions. Not a normal part of aging. And we've listed here the top four that we see: Alzheimer's disease, vascular, that's anything with the cardiovascular system. We'll talk more about it. Lewy body, frontotemporal. And then we also have mixed dementia. Mixed dementia is when a person has two dementias, at least two. They can have more than that. And almost always that second dementia is vascular. One of the latest studies shows that people at the end of life, when they have died and they die with dementia, about 80% of them had vascular dementia, even though they may not have even known it. Because vascular dementia can be from uncontrolled high blood pressure, a TIA, those little tiny pinpoint strokes, a stroke. Smokers are at a really high risk for vascular dementia, diabetes, obesity. There's all kinds of reasons a person might get vascular dementia, but they may have it and have Alzheimer's. They may have it and have Parkinson's disease dementia and have frontotemporal. So here's another little cartoon we got to put up here. This is probably my favorite. There's the dinosaurs looking at the ark sailing away. Oh crap, was that today? Oops, it's gone. So we do have to have some humor whenever we're talking about this. Otherwise, we would sit here and cry for the whole time. So we do have to find a little bit of humor. We talked already about some causes of memory loss and confusion, and I've mentioned some of these. So somebody who has a really, really bad infection to the point that maybe they're becoming septic can be very confused or have memory loss, but not have dementia. Somebody who has heart issues, again, diabetes, lung, metabolic problems, medication interactions, a lifestyle of abusing drugs and alcohol, smoking's on there. There's now a direct link actually between lifelong depression and dementia. But somebody who's very, very depressed, we saw an awful lot of this during the pandemic, or has a high rate of anxiety, maybe having some memory loss, and it's not dementia. It's from the anxiety, or it's from the depression, or fluid on the brain. So there are other causes of memory loss. That's why we always want to start with primary care physician. As soon as we think we're even seeing any signs of memory loss or confusion that's affecting us day to day or affecting our loved one day to day, we start at the primary care physician. We do some complete blood work, and we might be able to rule some of these things out. What if it's just their thyroid is out of whack? What if their electrolytes are out of order? I knew somebody in my own family whose electrolytes were completely out of whack. And I'm sitting there, this is looking like dementia all day, but I know dementia doesn't come on overnight. It was the electrolytes. The only dementia that we do see come on suddenly can be vascular from a stroke. Now, we'll hear families say, nope, they were fine. And then they had that surgery and they had general anesthesia and they woke up with dementia. Well, they didn't wake up with dementia. They already had it. You probably just didn't know what you were seeing, but it did push it to the next stage. General anesthesia is one of the worst things that we can do for our brain. I know sometimes we've got to have it, but that's where we've got to go in there and be proactive, talk to physicians about other things that they can do other than general anesthesia. Use a block, use locals as much as they can, and use general anesthesia for the shortest amount of time. So other causes of memory loss and confusion, and these are the progressive dementias. We've already mentioned several of them, Alzheimer's being the most common. Dementia is an umbrella term, just like the word cancer is an umbrella term. Somebody says, my loved one has developed cancer. Our first question would likely be, what kind, what type, or what form? My loved one has dementia. What kind, what type, or what form? About 130 different types. We see these over and over and over again. So we'll get the question, is it important to know exactly what type of dementia my loved one has? That's different for everybody. Because if somebody is having these signs and symptoms and they are 48 years old, which we actually see, 52 years old, 55 years old, I'm probably going to go and find out exactly what kind of dementia that person has. If my loved one is already over life expectancy, which by the way, right now in the United States, it actually dropped a year, 75 for men, 80 for women. We've been dropping since 2020. We will turn. I'm still hopeful that August, when the new numbers come out, that we're going to start going back up. But the last one we dropped again, 75 for men, 80 for women. So if my mother is 86 and starts developing these symptoms, am I going to put her through a whole bunch of MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, nerve conduction tests, all that? No, I'm not. So it's things to think about. It's individual. Because how are they going to treat them? For the most part, they're going to treat all of them the same, with the exception of course, if it's Parkinson's and if it's Lewy body dementia, the people that have Lewy body respond in a very different way to medications. All right, let's look at some facts about the brain. And I added a few on here from what we had before. That brain is about 3 pounds. Our brains are about 3 pounds. A person with dementia, by the end of their life, their brain is going to be about 1 pound. The brain is failing. The brain is dying when somebody has dementia. Another interesting thing about the brain is that it is not fully formed until about the age of 25. Now, we probably all realize that if you raise children, because think about what happens. It's the frontal lobe that does not completely strengthen and connect until about the age of 25. Now, think about what's held in the frontal lobe: reasoning, rational behavior, executive decision-making, and our filter is also there. So it's not completely formed. Control, planning, reasoning, rational, filter until we're 25. The brain consumes about 25% of the body's nutrients. It's actually our fattest organ. 60% of the brain is fat. 100% of the brain is used. I know you've seen things that say we only use 10% of the brain. There are so many studies. I was looking at them yesterday that show that we use 100% of the brain. Our brain is going at night, it's always good. Things are happening in the brain, and we can strengthen the brain, and we can create neurons throughout the lifespan. We can create connections, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. What can we do to strengthen the connections? I always talk about if we put you through a PET scan, and PET scans, they light up. What are some things we could do to make that brain light up? We want it to be lighting up. So we're going to go through some things, and a lot of these you've heard before, but the question is, are you doing them? Yeah, Holly, I know I'm supposed to eat right. I'm supposed to do exercise. Are you doing it? And hopefully you're going to hear some things today that's going to make it a little easier for you to do some of these, or maybe you hadn't thought of it that way. But if we could hold off dementia, if we could keep it at bay even for 5 more years, or if we could hit a plateau, if we could do anything to keep from getting dementia, why would we not do that? Now let's look at some risk factors. About 30% of the time it is genetic. 30% of the time it is genetic, which means about 70% of the time, what else is going on here? Well, risk factors, number one is age. Latest numbers, and I've got it over here. Of all the people who have Alzheimer's disease, from the age of 65 to 84 is about 26% of the people. 85 up is about 39% of the people. So 1 in 5, Alzheimer's dementia at the age of 45, the chance is 1 in 5 for women, 1 in 10 for men. So why do we see more women having it than men? That's a question that's been asked over and over. Is it because women live longer? Is it somehow related to hormones? There's lots of studies on this. We don't know yet. We don't have the answers to that yet. But many, many studies being done. Mild cognitive impairment. Many people will get diagnosed with MCI, or mild cognitive impairment, first. If our loved ones or we get diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, and then we start doing these very things right here that we're going to talk about, these 6 pillars, there's very good research that shows that we can either hit plateaus and stay on those plateaus for a very, very long time. And the hope is that we can not develop it. What if we could just not develop it? Other risk factors, heavy alcohol use. There is actually a dementia that is alcohol-induced dementia, where a person drinks enough throughout their lifetime that they do permanent damage to their brain. We've seen it over and over again. Whoops. Skipped slides. Sorry. Smoking, we've talked about. Anything that's bad for the heart is also bad for the brain. When you see things like blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, we are not saying that everybody with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes is going to develop dementia. These are uncontrolled. When we have high blood pressure that's not controlled, when we have diabetes that's not controlled, we have cholesterol that's not controlled, it's bumping those levels up. Notice head injuries on here, CTEs, TBIs. You've seen a lot in the news. You may have seen some documentaries about traumatic brain injuries, football players, boxing, any type of a contact sport where there's lots of concussions. Does that put them at a higher risk? Absolutely, it does. Veterans, wartime veterans. We see so much of this in our Vietnam veterans, especially right now. Depression is on there. And I mentioned to you, there are studies now that are linking lifelong depression to dementia. Lifelong depression changes the makeup of the brain. This is another one, though. We can treat depression. Y'all can't see my shirt, but I have my shirt on today that says Mental Health Matters because May 1st is Mental Health Awareness Month. And unfortunately, even though I hate the term mental health, I prefer brain health. Depression and anxiety fall right under that umbrella. 80% of the time, we can completely cure depression if we'll treat it. 100% of the time, we can treat symptoms. We might not be able to cure it, but we can treat symptoms. Why wouldn't we do that? Chronic stress, obesity, and there's the diabetes. So let's look at diet. And we're going to talk about some specific things in your diet. Of course, we want a healthy diet. If you are a caregiver, it can be very, very easy to fall into eating things from a drive-through window, out of a box, and out of a can because it's easy. It's not healthy. There is a diet called the MIND, M-I-N-D diet. You're going to get these slides. Jamie, I think, has already put them in the chat, plus she'll mail them to you afterwards. So we're going to look specifically at what that MIND diet is. It's based on the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which is the diet that is for hypertension or high blood pressure. We're also going to look at foods that are brain draining. I bet right now, if you stopped and think, what are some foods that after you eat them, just a little bit after you eat them, you feel drained or you feel tired? Are those foods that we want to keep putting in our body? That might be really, really good when you eat them, but afterwards, how do you feel? So here's what our diet should include. We want to make sure and have those omega-3 fatty acids. And what is that? That's our good fats, nuts, seeds, fish, avocados. We're going to talk about antioxidants more in just a minute. Leafy greens, plant-based diets. And then there's the healthy fats again. And then as far as fruit goes, we've actually got to be careful with fruit. Yes, fruit, it's wonderful, but a lot of fruit has a lot of sugar. So there are certain fruits, especially if you're diabetic or you're pre-diabetic, that we want to stay away from the oranges and the grapes and the things that are so sweet. But what's good are the berries, the whole berry family. So raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries. We do want to lean more toward the berries. So I mentioned the antioxidants earlier. Let's take a look at those. And we have this here that talks about free radicals. Antioxidants inhibit oxidation. So a substance like vitamin C or E removes potentially damaging oxidizing free radicals. And I found this picture yesterday. What is a free radical? A free radical is what's in fried foods, alcohol, tobacco smoke, pesticides, and air pollutants. So if we could eat something that'll get rid of those things, or we can take vitamins, minerals that can get rid of those, it's like it's taken out the trash. The antioxidants are actually there to protect the body. So things that we eat that have antioxidants in it are kind of cleaning up those free radicals. This is the Mediterranean diet. It looks like this. We're going to look at the MIND diet next. So this is kind of what that food pyramid looks like on the Mediterranean diet. Primarily plant-based foods, decrease in LDL cholesterol, a lower risk for cancer, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's disease, and a lower risk for any cognitive decline later in life. It contains an abundance of healthy foods. It minimizes the unhealthy ones, such as prepackaged foods, desserts, the ones that are loaded with ingredients that are not good for cognitive health. So it's eating a primarily plant-based diet with the healthy fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts. It replaces butter with healthy fats such as olive oil, some canola oil. It uses lots of herbs and spices instead of salt. And it limits red meat because you notice meat is at the top of that pyramid. Now, I know those of you who live here in Texas, some of us, our diet, that meat is the bottom of the pyramid because we tend to eat an awful lot of meat. Barbecue eaters, we got to be careful about our meat. There's other stuff we can barbecue if that's something we're needing to do. But let me show you the mind diet, and this might be something new to you. It actually was put together by a team of neurologists. It's a hybrid, again, of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. The research on the mind diet showed that those who adhered to the diet reduced their dementia risk by as much as 53%. And those who just had moderate adherence reduced their risk by 35%. It's pretty easy to follow. We like this one. We talk about it a lot because it's kind of 10 do's and 5 don'ts. So it isn't that hard to follow. The other thing to keep in mind when you're looking at any diet is portion size, portion control. Because I might see on there, ooh, berries. Does that mean I eat the whole thing of strawberries? Or does that just, we've got to be careful with portion control. I think that's for all of us. So this is the mind diet. That's a great graphic that goes with it. And again, you will get copies of this. And then look what's on the unhealthy. And it doesn't even say food groups to completely get rid of in your diet. It says limit these things. Limit red meat and cheese, butter, sweets, and fried foods. Make it a treat. On the food pyramid over there, it showed it like monthly. Have it once a month. But then base your diet on all these other great things that you can have. And there's berries again showing up. Let's go to exercise. And I am not asking you to go out and jog around the block. That would be great if you can. I can't. If that's something you can do, do it. But there's lots of other things we can do to get exercise. And this now, when you start looking at studies on how can we prevent dementia, exercise many times will come up before diet. And think about why that is. When we are exercising, when we're moving in some way, we are pushing oxygenated blood up to our brain. There's nothing better than that. We're pushing oxygenated blood up to our brain. Now we just got to figure out what kind of exercise can I work into my day. Some type of aerobic activity. Again, those of you who remember when Jane Fonda was out and doing her aerobics, maybe you're not going to be doing that kind of aerobics, but there's lots of different types of things that you can do to get your heart rate up, is what they're saying. What can you do that can get your heart rate up? Regular physical exercise decreasing the risk for dementia and cardiovascular problems. We talked about it's rushing oxygenated blood to the brain cells, which then nourishes and fosters the growth of those new vessels in the hippocampus, the cerebellum, and other regions. It lowers our blood pressure. It reduces our risk of diabetes, breast, and colon cancer. One of the things we do have to be careful about as we get older, osteoporosis, osteopenia. So if we could strengthen our muscles and strengthen our bones, this is a way we can do it. There are exercises you can do while sitting in a chair and still work up a sweat. Go on YouTube, find chair exercises. There's exercises you can do while holding onto a chair. One of my favorites is the little, it looks like a bicycle pedals, but it sits right here on the tabletop, and you can do it with your hands or you can do it with your feet. You can get those everywhere. It also improves your sleep. It improves your mood. It enhances your cognitive control, reduces you being impulsive, and promotes better decision making. Let's think about why that is. Those of you who've been on our programs or are part of our support group may have heard me say this. I say all the time, the difference between a reaction and a response is a single breath. We do not want to walk in to a situation, maybe with our loved one that has dementia, maybe just with our husband that we're mad at, or our kids, or whoever it is. and react. We want to respond. If I take that one deep breath, what did I just do? I pushed oxygenated blood up to my brain. I'm going to be better able to respond rather than react. So imagine if I'm having an exercise session, if I'm doing 15 minutes, if I'm doing 20 minutes, if I'm doing an hour of taking some deep breaths. And then it's going to reduce my impulsivity, promote better decision making, all because I decided to go take that walk. We mentioned cardio or aerobic type exercises. There's also strength and resistance exercises. There's mind and body exercises, yoga and Tai Chi. Again, these are great things that you can find online. We have taught some classes before about chair yoga. Mental relaxation. Make sure that you're safe before you jump into any of this. You need to talk to your doctor about that. It's one part of your overall fitness. You've got to also pay attention to your diet while you are introducing exercise, because you don't want to be eating a bunch of junk food and then going out and trying to do a lot of exercise. We've got to fuel our body. Let's talk about sleep. How important is sleep? When we are deprived of sleep, it can actually slow down our thinking and affect our mood, and it puts you at a greater risk for developing dementia. There are some studies that are being done on people who've worked night shifts their entire life, and they're looking at how many of those people later in life develop dementia. Are they still getting that full 8 hours of sleep if they worked a night shift their whole life? For every hour you're awake during the day, you need a full half hour of sleep time to process new information you've learned. That's something out of Harvard. When we sleep, what's actually happening is our brain is restoring. And there's a quote on here. The restorative function of sleep may be due to the switching of the brain into a state that facilitates the clearance of waste products that accumulate during wakefulness. While we're sleeping, that information, you may have heard, we say this, let me sleep on it before I make a decision. Let me sleep on it. There's actually something to that. Let me sleep on it. Our brain takes the information that we learned during the day from the hippocampus and moves it into the frontal cortex. And it's going to put it, if you think of the brain as filing cabinets and there's files in there, this is when it's going to go put it over in those files. Where's this going to live? Where am I going to put this? We sort through things at night. It merges existing information with new knowledge to aid in problem solving. There really is something to let me sleep on it. I'll even say sometimes, I came up with a plan in the night, or the Lord spoke to me in the night. I came up with an answer. Here's the answer. And it really happens because we merge information together. You may have even had a time when you were going, what was the name of my third grade teacher? I get 3 o'clock in the morning. There she is, Mrs. Prather. That was her. Because you're merging that. You thought about it through the day. You allowed yourself to relax and go to sleep, and your brain went, there's that information you were looking for. It's still there. I just had to find it. I had to get to the right file. We reinforce procedural memories as we sleep. So we have these new updates on this phone, and I'm having to learn how to do all these new things on this phone. As I sleep, anything that you learned during the day that had a procedure to it, we process it. We also process emotional memories. That's why we can say, maybe I cried myself to sleep. I went to bed feeling very sad. I went to bed upset about something, and I woke up feeling better because I processed it in the night. It went over to that file. Where's this need to go? And then chemicals are also released to strengthen our immune system. You can see the other side of this if we're not getting enough sleep. Many times, caregivers, when they are not getting enough sleep, stay sick. I can't get over this cold. I don't know what it is. I'm just sick all the time. I'm run down. I don't have any energy. And it's from lack of sleep. Some of the things we can do, and it's actually called a sleep routine or sleep hygiene. We want to try very hard to stay in a routine, to try to get that 7 to 9 hours each night. If you can get some sunlight early, in fact, they say that one of the best ways to wake up is not to an alarm blaring in your ear, which for me, that makes me wake up mad. I do not want to hear beep, beep, beep to wake up. I wake up to music. But the best way to wake up is supposed to be open your shades. Right before you go to bed, just open your shades a little bit so that natural sunlight comes in. And it also helps regulate your circadian rhythm and your sleep-wake cycle. Exercising, not within 2 hours of bedtime, but exercising in the day, during the day, improves sleep as well. You also don't want to wait until bedtime to implement any changes. It's a day-long process. We don't want to get right to bedtime and then decide we've got stuff to do. I've got to go get, well, now what do we just do to our mind? We've got it turned back on. In the evenings, we want to not eat a very heavy meal right before we go to bed. And a lot of people will say, well, I have a nightcap. That nightcap helps me get to sleep. It's not helping you stay asleep, though. Use the bed for sleep, not for scrolling on the phone. I know I'm talking to myself, but boy, have we got to stop doing that. That's one of those things. In fact, a lot of articles I read now say to put it across the room or even in another room. Go to bed when you're ready to go to sleep. It's preferable that you don't have a TV in the bedroom. Reading, that's okay, but do it with like a little reading light. Don't have the great big overhead light on. Some other things you can do: ease into sleep, turning off the lights, settling in, have a bedtime ritual, maybe do some progressive muscle relaxation, using some things like guided imagery, where some people will do prayers at night, some people do gratitude at night, and you don't have to write this down. What if we went to sleep thinking about 3 things we did during the day that we did well, instead of laying there beating ourselves up over, I didn't, I would have, I could have, I should have. What if I laid there and thought of, we had a really good hour and a half this afternoon out in the garden. I enjoyed that new TV show tonight. And we had positive things that we drift off. If you do need something short term, some type of a medication, please talk to your doctor about that before just jumping in and deciding that it's something that you need. Try some deep breathing. We do a class called Stress Busters, and we just finished that class, and we had several people say that they've been able to fall asleep because they're doing the stress busting techniques, deep breaths, guided imagery, meditation, things like that. So let's look at stress and our brain health. What is stress? It's how our body responds mentally, emotionally, physically, and behaviorally to any kind of perceived change, demand, or event. Stress is there for a reason. We go into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode for a reason. It can be a good thing to have stress, but it can also be a bad thing to have prolonged stress. So let's see what is happening to the body here. We're in this normal state. So we're in this normal state. And then we have something stressful happen. And our body, we automatically have cortisol. We have this cortisol dump that sends us into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, 4 F's there. And what happens? Our blood pressure goes up. Our cortisol levels go up. Our heart rate goes up. Our breathing becomes very rapid and shallow. We might even kind of pant. I am not taking deep breaths and getting oxygenated blood up to my brain during this time. My brain activity is up because I'm aware. But my digestive system just went down. My muscle tension is up. In fact, my shoulders might even start to come up, even in the night when I'm sleeping. And my immune system is down. What does that mean for our digestive system to shut down? If we're a caregiver and we're staying at that heightened level all the time, we're not digesting our food. We're having constipation. We're having diarrhea. We're up and down all the time with irritable bowel syndrome, and it's because of our stress level. There's a direct link to stress and IBS. What's this doing to our heart? What's it doing to our blood pressure when we're staying up here? What's it do? Why do I feel like I've been beat up by a baseball bat and I hadn't hardly done anything today? Because I'm walking around with my shoulders up here and I'm tense all the time. When you wake up in the night, even if you're just waking up to go to the bathroom, try to be aware of where are your shoulders and intentionally bring those shoulders down. Because even in the night, if you're not really, really in a deep sleep, if you've got one eye and one ear open, you'll catch yourself. You're sleeping, but those shoulders are pulling up because of stress. We all have limits. We've got to recognize our limits. We've got to be realistic about our limits. We've got to be clear about what we can and cannot do. In the support groups, we say all the time, I can do anything. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. I have to set boundaries. I have to set limits. I have to learn to say no, and I need help. I need help. Could somebody please come help me with the yard? It's been raining a lot and my grass is out of control. Could you pick up dinner for us one night this week? You are not being a burden. You're not being a burden. If the person isn't going to do it, they won't do it. But there's lots of people that will do if you'll ask. They're not mind readers. They don't know what you need. And please don't deny your kids from helping take care of their parent. I know they're busy. I'm an adult child. I know they're busy. But I've had too many adult children say, my mama or my daddy won't let me help with my parent, and I don't want to lose that time with them. They won't let me help. They tell me everything's fine, and I know it isn't. Ask for help. We talk about KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it super simple and sane. Keep it simple and sane. Make lists. Get your to-do list. We talked about this earlier the week on Stress Busters. Even if your list says get out of bed, oh, good, I got to check something off my list. Brush your teeth, good, I checked something off my list. Pay one bill today. Okay, I paid one bill today. Decide and take action. But make it something you can do, where it's not going to be healthy to say, all right, Holly, it's the first of the month. Here I go. 100% of the time, I'm going to go jog a mile and I'm going to eat that mind diet every day. No, you're not. You're setting yourself up for failure if you say that. We want to ease our way into things. I'm going to do 15 minutes of walking. Absolutely. I'm going to do it 3 days a week. Here we go. That's attainable. I'm going to start changing my diet. You can do that. And it is the first of the month. What better time to start something new? It takes 30 days, 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit. Perfect day to start. Make or break a habit. You got to do it every day for 28 to 30 days, or you got to stop doing it every day for 28 to 30 days. Manage your expectations and be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Talk to yourself like you would talk to somebody in a support group. Talk to yourself like you would talk to me or to Jamie. I bet you would never come up to us and say, you are so stupid. You really should have. But that's how we'll talk to ourselves sometimes. I can't believe that I. And we beat ourselves up when we never would talk to somebody else that way. Practice your faith. Schedule time for that. Practice gratitude. And finding some type of relaxation, even if it is just sitting outside for a few minutes with a cup of coffee. Some of the things that you can do with meditation, and some people will call it a prayer time, some people will call it a meditation time, some folks call it a quiet time. There's actually research done on this. It's been found to help preserve the physical structure of the brain, increasing the hippocampus volume and decreasing the volume of the amygdala. And that amygdala is where fight, flight, freeze is held. Other things we can do. We've talked about the deep breathing. That's the easiest because you can do it anywhere. The easiest deep breathing is 4x4 technique, where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4. It just takes a few seconds. Imagery is where you actually can, and guided imagery is something you can look online for guided imagery, but you can also just in your mind go someplace you've been before that you loved, in the mountains, on the beach, but you've got to use all your senses. What did I hear? What did I see? What could I smell? What did I taste? What could I feel? Go there. Go there in your mind. Use music. Make yourself some playlist. Go back and use your music from when you were a teenager. Play some of that music and see how many of those songs you still know the words to all of those songs. I promise you do, because those are down in your brain. You want to impress yourself, go pull out your music from when you were a teenager and see how many of those songs you still know the words to. We talked about exercising, reaching out, talking about it. That's why support groups are so important, because you can come and talk and there's nobody on there ever going to say, what were you thinking doing that? I can't believe you said that. You should never be. Nobody ever, ever. In fact, you can say things on support groups that you can't say anywhere else because it's a really safe place and nobody tries to fix it. Laugh. That's so important, to find some time during the day to laugh. We have to, or again, we're going to be crying all the time. Even if it is something online, if it is some type of music, if it is a video, something to laugh. Journaling is fantastic. A massage is great. And then learning to say no. Brain fitness. I do want to talk just a minute about education levels, because this is a concern to everybody. But my dad's got a PhD. How could he possibly get dementia? Dementia doesn't care. What we have found with education is that it does seem that the higher a person's education is, the longer they tend to be able to compensate. Excuse me. If they also were in a field where they were really, really social, the longer they tend to be able to compensate. Had a gentleman was an insurance salesman. Hello, my name is Jim. And he'd reach out his hand and shake your hand and off he'd go. People, well, what is he doing here? And here he'd come back. Hello, my name is Jim. He was social because he was an insurance salesman. So he kept that part of him, being able to be social. But we do want to continue to learn. One of the best things that we can do is continue to learn. And brain fitness, there's 3 keys to brain fitness: something new, variety, and a challenge. So we have puzzle books that we hand out when we go and speak. And every time I'll have people start going through there and go, oh, that one's too hard. Right. That's what we're looking for. We do not want to just do easy crosswords all the time. If you just do easy crosswords all the time, it's the same thing as going to the gym and just lifting barbells with your right arm. You're only exercising one part of your brain. We want to do the medium crosswords, and then we want to try to do the hard crossword. Variety, new, and a challenge. We want that whole brain to light up, not just little parts of it. So keep doing games. Yes, do your easy crosswords, but do some other things too. Traveling and planning. And if you can't do a real vacation, do a staycation. This week we're going to do Italy, and I'm going to watch a movie about Italy. I'm going to read about Italy. I'm going to make some Italian food. Fun. culture, museums, there's music again, and puzzles. So something as simple as, and I'm not going to have you yell these out because we got 3 minutes left, but just in your mind right now, real fast, say these answers in your mind. A bed of, a drop in the, a bolt from the, a knee jerk, a leopard cannot change its, all that glitters is not, backseat, better late than, Bonnie Ann, and do it fast. Good. You can also do things, this is almost like categories, where I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, list as many items as I can think of. It goes in a backpack. What are some boys' names? What are some frozen foods? What are hairstyles? Types of candies? And I'm listing, these are fun to play with grandkids too, by the way. These are so good for your brain. Social connections. You're doing it right now. You're on something that's social. We're here together, even though we're online, and there's people on here from all over. But staying social, the benefits that it has on memory, cognition, judgment, and overall health. We are social creatures. Boy, didn't we find that out about 4 years ago. We're meant to be social. We need it for comfort. We need it for support. We need it for familiarity. Being social exposes us to new things and an opportunity to know different perspectives. It also lowers our stress levels, and we tend to have better physical health when we're social. Now, can we be social and be in the digital world? Absolutely we can, but we don't want to just be in the digital world. If you do games online, please make sure that you are doing games that get harder as you play them. Challenge. If you are on social media, be careful the amount of social media that you're on. There is something to that face-to-face, but a lot of people moved like their book clubs online during the pandemic. That's good. Anything you can do to stay social. These were those areas again: plant-based diet, exercise, sleep, stress, managing stress, socially connected, and brain fitness. The summary: we want to make sure to practice all 6 of those areas. Strive for progress, not perfection. Reward yourself along the way. Have some little rewards. Get this into a routine. I said 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit. Find things that work for you and talk to a doctor if you're having any type of issues.